stop, stick around, come through and dig the sound of the fly brown 606 cycle. Who thought
Welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Wine Down with Kev. But before we begin, let me say thank you, and thank you again. Thank you to all of you who have viewed this. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed already. And if you like the content that we are creating, please click subscribe and notifications. We depend on you to be able to create awesome content like this. And before we begin, big shout out to our sponsors, Carol Media and Canopy Connect. Please talk to them both for all of your digital needs. That being said, we have another awesome show lined up for you today. We have a boss agent to introduce you to. We're going to the great state of Virginia. So let me tell you a little background before I bring her forward. She is a winner of all the sales awards, Agent Achievement, Leaders Forum, Circle of Champion, honoring more than 10 times, National Conference, Pinnacle Elite, but it doesn't stop there. Ray Lynch Community Service Awards, all of the community service awards you can possibly name for doing the right things for the customers in her community that she serves. She's a boss, she's a newlywed, and most importantly, she is my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Christine Engels.
Woo!
Hey, Christine, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you. A pleasure to be on here.
Absolutely. First question before we go business, where's the tambourine?
Oh, well, I have a lot of them, but there's always one handy. Here's my Italy one. So that's always ready.
Let's go. So if you don't know, shake it with Christine. She is the tambourine lady of Allstate. Christine and I served on the Allstate Executive Council together. We've taken a lot of business trips together, and whenever we had 5 minutes to unwind from a long workday, Christine always has her tambourine. So glad to see one of your tambourines out and about. So before we get into the business, congratulations on being a newlywed. Are we at our first anniversary yet, or we're coming up on it?
Thank you. No, I got married July 6th, so still in the newlywed stage. I think we're going to make it to the first year. We're good.
Let's go. Congratulations to your husband. Christine is a proud boy mom. I love the relationship you have with your son. Some parents don't know that it's not easy once the children become adults, that they kind of choose to be our friends. So would you say that your sons are your friends and you love hanging out with them as young adults right now?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, so all the stages of kids, as you know, have their trials. Now it's really fun time. So my two boys are 22 and 24. They're great to hang out with. We go out, we go on trips, and yeah, exactly. It's an honor for them to want to be with me and hang out. So that's wonderful.
It's a choice now. It's not mandatory. So you've done some things right if they choose to hang out with you. So kudos to you. So Christine, right from the top, tell the people what you love about being an Allstate agent.
All right. Well, honestly, really, it's the challenge. Like, I am always thinking of, well, how can I make that better? How can I do that right? So I love, as you know, I love to win. I love to be on top. I love to figure it out. So it's not, even if you haven't figured it out, you're like, oh, I'm doing great. Something changes. The rates change. Your team changes. The goals change. Something changes, and you have to figure it out. So it's a constant puzzle. And there's always something to figure out and try to win it.
I love it. The journey is the fun. The hard part is actually the best part. What the heck am I going to do with the deck of cards I'm dealing with today? Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, Christine, you have an interesting background. You weren't previously in sales before coming to Allstate. You come from a tech background. Talk about your background before becoming an Allstate agent.
Sure. So I went to college. I had an engineering degree. I graduated from college. I was a software developer. I went into software development management. And, I was doing great. Everything was great. Then I had those two great boys we talked about and took 12 years off. And I was an at-home mom, but of course I was, the room mom and running the soccer league, etc. But then it was time to come back to work, I was looking into getting back to technology. And that was a little bit different. Things have changed in 12 years. So now I somehow became an Allstate agent because my agent recommended that I get into the business. So my own Allstate insurance agent said, oh, there's an agency for sale. You should try this. So it was totally random, to be honest. And I bought an agency, no insurance experience, went in. So it really was kind of hard. But honestly, it was really kind of hard. The first 6 months, it was terrible. Yeah.
Talk about the first 6 months. Talk about the terrible part. I gave you the introduction. Everyone knows that the story ends wonderfully and the story's still going. But what was terrible about those first 6 months?
Well, I will say the first day that we opened, there was a derecho storm in Virginia the weekend before we opened. So I didn't have power in the house. I don't think we had power even in the office. All the phone was ringing off the hook with claims. And so every one of your new customer needs you, and you really don't feel like 100% like you know what to do. So I've never been in a position where really that's not normal that so many people need you right away. And so that was a challenge. You know, it was kind of embarrassing. Like, I mean, obviously I found people who could have the answers and we took care of the customers, but I didn't feel on top of my game. You know what I mean? I was uncomfortable.
Oh, I can relate 1,000%.
Yeah.
The anxiety of I'm here, I'm in charge, but bear with me because I don't know what I'm doing. Not to mention that your personal life, not having power at home or in the office, you're a little bit upside down. And yet these people don't want to hear any of that. They want to know how you're going to put their lives back together.
Yeah. So that was that. So taking care of the new customers. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, get some more customers. And I didn't really know where were I supposed to get those customers from. Everyone's like, oh, call this list, call these people. And that was kind of depressing. You know what I mean? So to me, I was like calling, oh my gosh, I was like, I can't believe this is what's happening. I'm calling people. And, you know, it was hard. I think that it wasn't, so, you know, I wasn't succeeding. I wasn't growing. So it's kind of depressing. Getting no, a lot. So I think, yeah.
As an engineer, you never heard no's like that, right? You work on projects, you make progress, you move along, you're solving for X. And as a stay-at-home mom, but active, hardworking mom in the community, you never face this level of rejection, I'm sure.
Exactly. So, you know, I wasn't prepared for that. It wasn't something I'd ever experienced because I hadn't been in sales. And so, you know, you have things that go wrong or go well, but not usually just like a flat no, people hanging up on you, things like that. So that's, you know, it was a little bit shocking.
Christine, help me with, I know you started similar to I did. What year did you start exactly?
2012.
2012. Okay. So at that time, cold calling was a big thing. That was the way to do business. But fast forward to today, you are amazing digitally. You're on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. But the one that I like your presence the most on is LinkedIn. Can you talk about what you do on LinkedIn and what kind of articles and stories you share with your network?
Sure. And I definitely have a difference between what I put on LinkedIn and Facebook. And sometimes it's the exact same thing. But on Facebook, I really do more personal things or more like, oh, we had some fun lunch in the office. But I will keep to LinkedIn more when we're doing volunteer work, when we won an award, something like bigger and more professional. So I definitely save my more professional items for the LinkedIn, and you know, that's the place I think for that, and it definitely resonates with the people who are looking in there.
I tell you, just from following you on LinkedIn, I have top of mind awareness of how much time you spend networking with your referral partners. So, hey, DJ, what's up? I'm in the middle of recording the podcast.
I know, man.
No, yeah. So, this guy, you know, we want to talk about something different. He's trying to get his website and his Google My Business page going.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you know, everybody knows you helped me to get to the 2 Comma Club, but and be seen by a couple of million people. But this person wants to do something different. They're trying to run ads to their book of business, their model line campaigns and stuff like that.
I know, Kev.
Oh, man. Well, DJ, talk to the people, man, so I can get back to the podcast. How can you help?
Yeah, man. So listen, I can help you by running monoline ads to your auto, your home, as well as optimizing your website, your Google business profile, and your social media outlets. We can do the exact same thing we've done for Kevin over the years and get you in front of millions of sets of eyeballs to help you grow your business. Contact Carroll Media today. Kev, let them know.
DJ, I appreciate you jumping in the podcast. Hit up Carroll Media. DJ, I gotta go. I gotta get back to the podcast.
I know.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the things you do in your area of Gainesville, Virginia with your referral partners and why that's important to your agency?
And sure. So like my biggest source now of new business is people calling us versus us calling them and people hanging up on us. So that's a lot more fun. Yeah. So I have a lot of fun with people. I have a lot of friends in the mortgage banking industry and the realtors, but also I make my point of giving back to the industry. So I sponsor a lot of events for the mortgage brokers associations, for the realtor associations, because people appreciate that. So I'm like, well, you're giving me business. I have to give something back to be, it just seems it's only fair. It's only right. So I'm known for someone who will, this week I sponsored a whole group of people at mortgage lenders so they can have a lunch and learn. Why? Because that's important. That's giving back. That's helping them grow their business the same way they're helping grow my business. It's fair.
No, it's very, very fair, and it makes a massive difference in what you're doing. So there's some agents listening to this right now. We're in massive change in the middle of our industry. What are we going to do? How are we going to adjust? And to hear you say that you've turned it around from the frustration of cold calling and being banged on or hung up on to now positioning yourself to where people are calling you. Agents are hanging on word by word, listening. How did you make the pivot? What was the key turning point for you where you kind of figured it out and say, you know what, this feels better than that?
Yeah, well, I went to a new home expo. So really I had got my little booth and a table, and we had some little clips with houses on them to hand out. And really I went there to talk directly to the homeowners. And that's what I thought was happening.
Yes.
But when I looked next to me, the other vendors were all mortgage lenders, and I became friends with them. And I said, oh, this is, so then we became friends, like, hey, how's it going? Are you meeting some people? Are you getting some leads? We made connections. I said, how about we have lunch? And so that was really when I got the clue that the connection, they could go direct to consumer, and I could just piggyback off of that. If that makes sense.
Yes. You could work B2B, business to business, while they're working business to consumer. And it's a beautiful transition. Certainly a place I've been in myself, co-op and condo expos, home expos. And there's no substitute for going where people are already at, as opposed to trying to have the big cartoon magnet out front and attracting people to your office to try to pull them in. So I think that's huge. And now you're doing it. You pivoted. When do you think you've made your pivot, and when do you saw major results? I know when you start a strategy like this, it starts with twos and fews, and then it multiplies later over time and over a consistent, excellent service.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I definitely use tools to track where my leads come from. My team probably thinks I'm nuts. If I have any lead that's in the system that doesn't have a referral source, I go crazy. So I want to know where I'm like, why did they call us? So well, they just call us. No. That is not acceptable. I want to know where every lead calls, why that phone rang, why they called us, so I can figure out what's working, how do we track it, what do we continue investing in, and then, so that's important. So I have tracked it, over time, like, well, how many referrals are we getting? Are we growing? And sometimes you think, how can I be growing? But last year we had 20% more referrals than we had the year before. I looked at the number of referrals we had from January this year, January last year, and it's 20% more than we had last year. I'm happy.
That's awesome. So Christine, is that the engineer in you that's tracking and testing everywhere along the line to see where there's a chink in the armor, where it's not working, and then solving for X before you move down?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I definitely do a lot of things by feel. I mean, if you're taking people out for lunch or sponsoring something, sometimes I'm just taking a risk. So I feel like this will be a good place, but then I have to kind of, all those feelings I had, did it really pan out? If that makes
Yes.
any sense. Yeah.
Yes. I want to go there, but I want to ask an obvious question before I go forward. Right now, there is a stay-at-home mom and an engineer that might be in a career change situation. And the question they want me to ask is it hard to get into the insurance business in Virginia? And are you hiring, or are you always looking for good people right now?
Yeah, so I will say, if there's someone who wants to get into sales, who's at-home mom, who wants to stay working at-home mom, who works part-time, please call me.
Yes.
And we'll set something up. So one of the best things I did 5 years ago was I hired one of my best friends who was an at-home mom who was never in sales, but she was a doer.
Yes.
And she was never licensed, never in sales. She's still my top salesperson.
Wow.
Yeah. So I believe it's a lot of personality. You are smart and you are a doer. I can train you on insurance and help you get licensed. I think this is it's a lot of personality. As long as you can learn and you can talk to people, and it's important for you to do well at whatever you do, I think that anyone can do it.
So there's a lot of depth in that short word you use. You said she was a doer.
Yeah.
She didn't have a license. She's at home. What is a doer? What does that look like? Every agent, I'm doing 50 podcasts, 50 agents, 50 states. You know that recruiting and finding good people is our number one challenge. What did she exhibit to you as a doer that told you this is going to translate well? She can succeed. She would fit here. And now she's your top salesperson.
Yeah, so we actually were baseball moms together. We were volunteering in the snack shack, cooking up burgers and selling them. But whenever there was anything to be done, like we had to make sure that everyone had filled out the calendar and someone was manning it and someone was throwing the party, she was like, "Oh, I got it. I got it. I got it." And sometimes people say, "I got it," and then they let the ball drop, or it's kind of like half done.
Yeah.
Always really well done. And so, you can count on someone
Yes.
to get things done. I do believe in the term doer. So now, probably every agent out there has an expectation for their team. So I have now like a minimum per team member, and then I have a goal.
Yes,
So,
two different things.
Yeah, Michelle, who I'm talking about, I know she's going to hit her goal.
Right.
She may occasionally hit her minimum if she's on vacation a week, that month. But it's going to get done. The same way that I am. Like, you give me a goal, by the end, it's going to happen. I'm going to assure you that the goal is going to happen. And I think some people are like, "Oh, I didn't get my goal." And there's people who are like, "I'm getting my goal."
I love it, Christine. As a basketball dad and a football dad, you spend a lot of time people in those situations, and you know what it is. Our kids are playing the sport on the field. The coach is coaching and training and developing our sons, but then he needs those team moms. He needs someone to sell the waters, the snack stands, the T-shirts, to give out snacks, win, lose, or draw the game. So that's critical. So you do get to see people in motion. So I think you gave one of the best hiring and recruiting tips that are out there. So I love it. State of Virginia. Does it cost a lot of money? Do people have to spend time in a classroom? They have to go to community college, or can they just get their license online?
Good question. People can just get it online. So really, most people take an online course and then take a test. So it varies how long it takes. I would say probably on average, it takes 2 weeks to get a property and casualty license here in Virginia. What I usually do if I'm hiring people is I will, if I'm hiring someone unlicensed, I will pay for the class and pay for the exam, and then I will hire them into the agency once the exam is passed.
I love it. You heard that first here. Virginia looking for an opportunity. She's hiring. She's paying for the license. One catch, you got to pass the test to be qualified. So, Christine, let's talk about your area of Virginia. You gave us one claim story. One of the reasons I'm doing so many agents, so many states,
Sure.
Each area of the country faces their different set of natural disasters. So day one, you're just starting out or very early in your first 6 months. Tell me, tell me some common natural disasters that happen in your area, and why is it important for people to have a good local agent like you as opposed to a .com or 1-800 number that they call that really doesn't know the Gainesville, Virginia area?
Sure. So, so I live in Northern Virginia. We're right outside of DC, where I am and where the agency is. We do have customers all over Virginia, but like that's where we are. Like, so we're more like near the Washington, DC area where we are. Weather-wise, luckily we don't have as many major natural disasters that we have. But common here, maybe like windstorms, like in terms of for home insurance, windstorms, hailstorms, things of that nature. But the biggest thing that I find that I talk to people about is their liability insurance. I have a lot of people who have come from other states, from other countries. They may not have a background in liability insurance. And so I see people who make a lot of money, they've moved here from someplace else, and they have state minimums for their liability coverage. And so what I talk to them about is we are a very litigious society, especially around here in Washington. Everyone is a lawyer, has a lawyer, so there's a lot of lawyers around this area. And people who, just want to get what they want if they get into a car accident. So we focus on natural disasters, but I think our specialty is really also talking to people about making sure you have, what we call that big money protected, and that your liability coverage meets, not everyone needs to have a ton, but it should meet whatever you have to possibly lose, so you're protected.
I love it. Hey, Ray, what's up? I'm in the middle of shooting a podcast here.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Nothing, man. I'm talking to a couple of my guys. They're struggling with all this new stuff, man. It's taking them 20, 30 minutes to fill out a quote sheet.
That's way too long, man. I think we can help.
You sure, man? They're trying to do different stuff. They're trying to do like X-Day campaigns. They're cross-selling. They want to follow with people they meet at networking events.
Yeah, well, Canopy Connect, you just send them a link. What is that? You can text it to them. You can put it on your business card as a QR code, scan that up, and all they have to do is click on that link, find their carrier, their insurance carrier, and sign into it. And we're gonna go in and grab all the information you need to get a quote, all their policy information, their deck pages, drivers, vehicles, and enrich that with property data. We get all that stuff, right? So you don't have to spend 30 minutes on the call. It's all easy.
Well, shut the front door. Enough said. Guys, you heard it right here. Stop going old school. Use Canopy Connect. Thanks, Ray. I got to get back to the podcast.
Got it. See you.
Christine, let's put some color around that conversation. Someone coming in the Northern Virginia, DC area, I have an idea, pretty expensive area. Mm-hmm. What would you say Zillow average home values are? And what are some liability limits you would recommend to people moving into that area in terms of what should they think about? If their home is worth X, they should be thinking about this amount of insurance on their auto liability.
Sure. Now, to put it in perspective, I mean, you're from New York, so things are expensive there. So it's not as expensive as New York and California, but still most of the so it varies too. So most of the homes around here are $1 million, $1.5 million, but then, maybe a half hour west or south, you probably maybe in the more 500 to $1 million area. So it just depends. Oh, or less. We have a lot of people who rent as well. So we talk to people. I just sent a message to someone this morning, and he has $1 million house. It's a tiny little house in Arlington, but it's a lot of money because it's in a nice, it's in a close to the DC area. And I said, well, you don't have to get it. I just want you to ask your financial advisor, do they recommend based on your net worth, that you should have this $1 million of liability protection? Like, I think so, but sometimes a lot of people have their own people. I said, well, confer with them and let me know, if my advice meets with your advisors.
I love the pushback to the financial advisor. This way you're not being pushy. You're validating with someone that they trust with their other finances, and we're protecting the assets. So I love that angle. And Christine, I'd be remiss We're recording this podcast the day after a tragedy in the nation's capital. So I just want to say our thoughts and prayers are with anyone and everyone that was impacted by the tragic aircraft accident on last night.
Yeah, and I know it sounds crazy. So I am very scared of flying. So honestly, so that's a kind of situation that terrifies me. So honestly, I try not to talk about it or think about it because I was so worried. And I really haven't even heard who's on the plane. I'm worried for all those people. And then I was like, it's right there. Like, oh my gosh, do I know someone who was on that plane? I mean, I'm sorry for everyone, but all of a sudden I had a panic attack. Last night, I said, "Where's my son?"
Yeah. And interesting for you to share your fear of flying. I have a fear of heights. I'm okay flying, but I don't like heights. I don't like to be like on top of a mountain where I can't see the edge. I don't like to drive on cliffs where, parts of Hawaii I've driven in and the bottom falls out of my stomach, or California, I've had that experience, and locally I have it as well. I pretty much don't like mountainous areas to drive in them. Love the views, don't want to drive. You travel a lot. How do you get past that fear of flying?
Well, I'm doing okay. And I also have that same fear of heights that you do. I mean, I do hike, but sometimes I know I may have to not make it to the top. Like it might not happen.
You're okay with that? Yeah.
But actually, the more flying that I've been doing has helped. Like,
good.
Literally, I think I have a flight once a month since November through at least June this year. And so exposure therapy, I think, is just naturally happening. So I feel a little bit better.
I love your courage in embracing that. In the last 2 years, and I served in the AEC with you, we've probably taken several flights to the same destination, not on the same flights at the same time. So I never knew that about you. Now, no, I didn't.
Wind down on the way, so that
that I know. That I know. So, Christine, one thing I do know about you is that you're a walker. When you land, you get to a hotel, you're looking for the fresh air. When the rest of us are waiting for the shuttle to the meeting, you are walking. That I knew about you. But what I didn't know about you was that you run 10Ks. Talk about your running. How long have you been doing it, and what does that do for you?
Well, the funny thing was I haven't been running that long, but really, I don't think I ever went for a run before I was either 40 or 50. So I haven't been running that long, but I'm trying to think my first race was definitely not more than 5 years ago.
Okay.
And a 10K is kind of like my sweet spot. And now if you're like in an older age bracket, sometimes I can in a small race, I can be like a winner. So that's really exciting. Last year I ran the Cherry Blossom 10 miler.
Okay.
And so that's a long distance for me. And I've signed up to run it again in April. So that's exciting. And luckily it's very nice and flat. And I'm hoping to train and get there again. So we'll see.
So what's the journey like? I have never run a race. I'm in the gym. Tough couple of weeks. I haven't been in a couple of weeks. So I'll get back on my bike. I told myself I'll be back on Monday. But what's the prep process for this 10K in April? What's your regimen? What does the next 60 days of prep time look like for you?
Yeah, so it's been rough around here because it's been so much snow.
Yes.
I'm not a person who runs when there's potential for ice outside. So today might be a day for a run because it's finally I don't mind the cold, but I'm not going to run if it's icy. So for me, as you know, we talked about it, I like to be active every day. So if active, I can fit it in, and the only time I can fit it in is walking to the meeting, that's what will happen. So, winding down to me is doing something active. So either being outside is the best for me, listening to music while I'm doing it. So running is great. And then a run itself is the best because not only are you doing that solitary thing and your music and you're getting some energy, when you're in a race, all these people are running around you. Like the Cherry Blossom 10 mile, I think it's like 30,000 people running through DC, and people are cheering, and there's bands playing, and there's a party afterwards. So it's, sometimes if you do that, you could have like a party and exercise and be outside by 11 o'clock, all the things are done in the day.
So take me through, I've been in DC a fair amount of times. The Cherry Blossom 10 mile, you just said running through DC.
Yeah.
Tell me what landmarks you're running through. What are you passing while you're running through? We're seeing White House, Lincoln Monument, MLK.
Right, yeah, you
What
run
do
over
see?
the monument. So I only did it once, but my goal now, we'll see. So we'll see. We'll check in a few years. Now that I've done this 10 miles, my goal is to do it every year till I die. Maybe I'll be walking some year, but this is my new goal. I've said it here on Wine Down with Kev.
Run 10K every year, the Cherry Blossom 10K. But I digress. Tell me some of the landmarks. I think everyone, I think DC is a destination city for most Americans, no matter where you're from. You want to see the capital. You want to see where things are done and decisions are made. So take us through some of the landmarks that you might see on your run.
Yeah, so it starts and ends near the Washington Monument. You run over the Memorial Bridge. You go all around. I can't think of the name of this point. The point where you see all the cherry blossoms are lining along the water. You go to the Lincoln Memorial. So it's really like a beautiful, beautiful race if the weather's good and everyone's wearing like fun spring things, even though it's early April. Last year, I think that it was either right after they bloomed. But hopefully they'll be in bloom this year, and it'll be, everyone's taking pictures around the Jefferson Memorial. But you see really all the monuments. It's great.
I love it. I love it. A history lesson and a race. You said you just started. Who invited you? How did you get involved with running?
Yeah.
I have friends that run, and they've told me about this thing called a runner's high. I ran. I didn't get a high. I didn't get a buzz. I just got tired. So how did you get started?
Yeah, and I definitely do get that little, I am that kind of person who gets a runner's high. People are like this, I'm dreading this. I do go out there and I feel so much better. I had a friend who was running a marathon, and that's not a goal for me. Like 10 miles, I don't think I will ever do that. 10 miles is a lot. That's a kind of a limit for me, I think. But signing up with friends and doing things. I do somewhere. I have a race coming up where it's like a volunteer event. So we're raising money for like Quarter Point and Special Advocates. So I've been doing that every year for several years. So when you combine things too, I think with a fundraiser, with some friends, with exercise, and then once again, I do like having a goal and then accomplishing it. So that keeps me going.
So if your why is big enough, you can find the how. So you mentioned fundraising. You are obviously someone very involved in the community, very involved in giving back to the community. Talk about 2 or 3 of the charities you're involved in that are nearest and dearest to your heart.
Yeah, so we talked about earlier about giving back if I'm doing something. So when I first opened up my agency, it was in Manassas, Virginia. I was living not there, so I found a volunteer organization in the town where my agency was to kind of be part of the community. So I didn't want to just show up and make some money. I said, let me be part of the community too.
Yes.
So there's a family shelter, the Northern Virginia Family Service Serve Shelter, and we'll go and serve dinner or brunch. So we'll make and serve dinner to about 65 people, families. So I do that a couple of times a year. And that's really worked out really nicely for my team members, like my staff as well, because I have people who love to cook. Yes. And we'll go out, and we made pot roast and potatoes and berry cobbler. So I brought this like delicious homemade meal to the shelter. So we've been doing that every year. So I love that. And I have another thing that I've been doing with a bunch of Allstate agents where they have these food packing weekend, food for kids that are taking home, food for the weekends if they've been on the lunch program. So, yes. But that's been great because I have Allstate, my sales leader, the vice president, other agents nearby. So we've all been able to get together and do it together. And pack it. So that's like a one-time event, but it's great work that we're doing, and it's also great to do it together.
How awesome is that to represent a company like Allstate that encourages us to give back to the community and to do that work with fellow Allstate agents in collaboration, not in competition?
I love it. And then, of course, and but it's good for other people who are listening to know that the Allstate Foundation will put a grant for 5,000 or sometimes 10,000 or sometimes more to those organizations where we volunteer. So that is really rewarding.
No, that's absolutely one of the things that I love about being an Allstate agent, to be a face and a place in the community and to make those donations, because that's what this platinum is for. Like you said, and going to the community, it's not just making money for yourself, but to give it back to those that you have the honor of serving. So, Christine, you talked about winding down by running, which is not my deal. But what's your morning routine? Where does this burst of energy come every morning?
Yeah.
Do you have a certain routine to get in your state of mind, or do you wake up like this?
The crazy thing is I generally wake up like this, but I do now to have coffee. And people say, what are your routines? My routine is that every day is different. I like look at my day and say what's happening. Probably there's 10 minutes where, like, some days I wake up tired, but really once I'm up, I'm kind of looking at the day and just seeing what needs to be done for work, what's on the calendar, when can I exercise, what fun is happening. And there you go.
I love it. I love it. The work, the fun, all of it in the mix, all of it a priority the first thing in the morning. So I was looking at both your website and your Google page. You have amazing reviews. People say phenomenal things about your team. Talk about your team. You mentioned the one person as well, the doer, and I'm going to hang on to that word. I wrote it down on my notes. Talk about just your team in general. How would you describe your team culture, and what's important for someone that's listening to this in Virginia or remotely someplace else that might want to join your team? What's important to fit into the team at the Christine Engels Agency?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would be remiss if I didn't if everyone's like, she only mentioned Michelle, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. A couple of things. So I had someone who worked for me a few years back, and I hope I haven't repeated the story too many times, but she said to me, you're like work, and then get up and dance like you're at Mardi Gras. And she meant it as an insult. But I was like, that's exactly who I am. So I am super lucky. I have a fantastic team. So we're kind of broken into our customer service team. I have luckily to have a very, very experienced customer service team. I have people who have been in the business 10 years and 5 years and 7 years. And so that's great. And they really care about our customers. And, you can't do anything without that. That's super important. And I have our, either what we call sales team or work with our new customer team, I call it sometimes, who are also really want to talk to people and explain coverage and make sure they get them into the right spot. So I feel very fortunate by the team that I have. But that's the thing is that I am expecting everyone to work hard and to be very diligent in what they do. But then we like to have some fun together, either if it's going for a walk or having lunch or going out for dinner. They say, when are we going dancing? So that's what's happening. A little bit of both.
Right. You brought up dancing. We've hung out before. We've been down Broadway in Nashville. We walked around Chicago, big group of us last year. We didn't find a good blues bar to hang out at. But you have the hashtag Shake It With Christine. You always have the tambourine with you. Does Shake It With Christine with the tambourine, does she come to the office in the middle of a high energy workday? Does the tambourine come out, and do you give the office a nice boost of energy with the tambourine, and does the dancing begin during the workday?
Oh, sure. And I should have admitted to say, you referenced our being together, and I don't know if I said it enough. I'm such a pleasure to be with you. Every time we're together, I say some crazy thing like, let's go check out a blues place. And you're like, okay, great. And so we've always gotten along well. You're always up for anything. And, unless you're not, but you're very, certainly if it's before 9 p.m., you're in with me.
You got it. That's who I am. Kevin runs out of gas. I do run out of gas, and I have left before those evenings have been over. 100%. As sure as that person says that you're work, and then you're like, let's dance. Yeah, that's me. I wake up on fire, but at a certain time, Kev likes to wind down and call it a day. Where did the hashtag Shake It With Christine, where did it come from?
I think it was an example. Other people were doing fun hashtags, some of our fun friends. Everyone has something fun, and I don't know. I actually don't even know, but we are shaking it. We are doing it. You asked before too, do I bring it to the office? One of the best things that I added to my team meetings weekly is a little bit, give someone else a shake. So I have a little, picture of a girl shaking it, and it's, whenever someone does something, so they will say something, compliments to each other who did something good, for them or in the other they noticed, and they will give each other a shake, and we shake them, in the meeting. It's cute.
I love the culture. I love the energy boost I saw on Facebook. I think you're in Miami hanging with your sons, and then you're up there dancing, you're shaking it with a little kid and just having a good time and enjoying life. And I think that it's what it's all about. So, Christine, you and I serve together on the Agency Executive Council, and that's 10 agents that gets to speak with the top executives that run the company a couple of times a year. So with that experience, what does it feel like you to be the voice of 5,000 plus other agents? What does that feel like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple of things, and it's a pleasure and it's an honor, but it's also a lot of responsibility. As you know, and I know we're all always looking at, okay, what does it mean to me as an agent, and what does it mean to the agency force? Because I know that there are so many different sizes and shapes, and everyone is looking at things differently. There's a bunch of different sizes of agencies. So I'm really taking a look at it and trying to remember, like, what would agents want us to say and represent and fight for? And that's what I try to do. So you also mentioned my technology background. I think I kind of bring that part in where I'm questioning things from an analytical. So I always have kind of my angle of things, which I think is helpful and hopefully helpful to the agency force. Yeah.
Well, what I love is hearing you share today the community events that you do with other agents in the Virginia area. When you're doing those community activities and we're not talking about sales and service and challenges, you just get to know each other and you get to hang together a little bit. And then that better position you to be the voice of other agents. And I think you do a phenomenal job at it. I think we've covered everything I can imagine on this podcast. But before I let you go, is there anything at all that you'd like to share that I didn't ask you about? Something you'd like to share with anybody that listens to the podcast?
No, I honestly think you did a great job. I so respect you so much. You taught me how to add my little captions to my videos, and I love spending time with you. I always learn something, and I love just hanging out with you. So I really appreciate being part of this.
No worries at all. So my last question: there's an engineer right now that's being downsized from his or her company, and there's a stay-at-home mom that's thinking about re-entering the workforce. Give them an encouraging word. The Wine Down with Kev, that's the formal name, but I also call it the Dream Chaser podcast because I'm a real dream pusher. I love pushing people to do what's in them. So I want you to give them an encouraging word to that engineer that's used to more technical things, or that doer stay-at-home mom. I want you to say something to encourage them and let them know that they can do their next dream.
Well, also, I mean, it's definitely a reality. So about 5 years ago, one of my engineering friends from college was, in a position looking for a different job. I said, why don't you buy an Allstate agency? So he did, and he's been one of the best agents in Virginia since then. So I know it can happen. I've recommended it to people, and it has happened. I literally just sent a text to one of my friends who lost their job, and I said, if it doesn't work out, you could be an Allstate agent. Seriously. So I just did that today, and I do believe that. So I think it's a great, pathway, or second career or third career, whatever it is for you. And I would love to talk to someone about, my experience and how to make that work. So feel free to people to reach out. I'm happy to talk.
I love it. You heard it here from Christine Angles. It's never too late. You're never too old to dream a new dream. So dream chasers, thank you so much for listening to this podcast with my friend, Christine Angles. I hope you got as much value out of it as I did. If you enjoyed it, please click on the subscribe button, the notifications button, so you can be aware when phenomenal content like this is released. Before we wrap up, just a big shout out to my sponsors, Carol Media and Canopy Connect, and thank all of you for tuning in. Thank you, Christine, for giving us a great tour, not only of the state of Virginia, but taking us on a run through the cherry blossom of Washington, D.C. Go ahead. You had some thoughts. Go ahead.
That's all. Just thanks, Kevin. It's great.
Thank you.